You know, for the longest time, I bought into a very specific narrative of success. It was all about the grind, the hustle, competing fiercely, staying in control, being the absolute best no matter what. And honestly, it worked to a point. There came a moment right in the middle of my climb when I was ticking off all the boxes, achieving those milestones, when I just paused. I looked around at everything that I had built over the years, everything that I had conquered, and then I looked inward. And what I saw, what I felt, was this deep, unsettling hollowness. Yes, I had achievements and I had them in spades, but they had come at a cost. It was costing me my natural softness, that beautiful, sacred stillness that truly makes me me. I was drained, absolutely, utterly, completely drained. This is exactly where I want to begin today's monologue, with this pervasive myth that force and force alone is the only path to power. This idea that hustle equals worth. This belief that masculine model of relentless pursuit is the only model for achieving anything significant in life. I'm here to tell you it's not. Welcome, my muses, to another intimate episode of my Monologues and Musings. I'm your monologue host, as usual, Soraya Cofie, and today my musing is extended from my previous monologue from a couple of weeks ago, musing over femininity, feminine magnetism, and soft power. In today's musings, I'm unraveling what I feel every high value woman should understand deeply: feminine magnetism versus masculine hustle. Look, we do live in a world that shouts, hustle harder, grind relentlessly, outwork everyone. And yes, there's a time and a place for that masculine drive, that linear, goal oriented push. It builds empires, it conquers challenges, it gets things done. It's the energy of the bulldozer, powerful and effective in its own right. We see it in the boardroom, we see it on the trading floor, we see it in the sheer force of will that drives a company to IPO. And honestly, there's a certain thrill to that energy, isn't there? That feeling of sheer unadulterated drive. And admittedly, as a woman who is relentlessly ambitious, this is energy that I find so alluring. But my muses, there's feminine magnetism. Oh, that whisper of silk, that scent of a rare perfume, the quiet confidence that needs no fanfare. It's the art of attraction, of drawing in, of cultivating an environment where opportunities gravitate towards you. It's not about pushing a boulder uphill. Let me take you back a moment to a few years ago, but to a very specific period in my life. I was launching a new venture, something that I was incredibly passionate about, something that I had poured my heart and soul into. And my approach, it was textbook hustle. Every single moment of my day was scheduled, regimented, optimized. I was waking up at 4 a.m., sometimes earlier, diving straight into emails, calls, strategy sessions. I remember distinctly not even allowing myself the luxury of time for my beloved beauty rituals, or picking up my journal just to jot down my thoughts, let alone the pure, unadulterated joy of just laughing, truly laughing with my girlfriends. My life was a meticulously crafted checklist, and to be clear, I got things done. Oh, I did get things done. The productivity was off the charts. But amidst all of that doing, I started to feel brittle, like I was on the verge of losing me. My nervous system was fried, creativity felt stifled, and the internal sovereignty I desired felt utterly out of reach. I was running on fumes, powered by sheer willpower, and it was unsustainable. Truth is, we've all been hustled by hustle culture. But here's the problem: hustle culture was designed for survival, not sovereignty. And when a woman abandons her rhythm for a man made race, she begins to win in the world, but lose herself. So, casting back, I discovered then what I know fully now. I looked successful. I was successful, yes. But inside, I felt like a robot in red bottoms, disconnected, drained, tired of pretending I didn't need rest, support, or softness. I felt like a CEO running from her soul. What I discovered through a series of breakdowns and breakthroughs was this profound truth: feminine magnetism is not passive. And this is crucial distinction. It's not about doing nothing, it's about being. And this being, this alignment, this resonance is incredibly potent. In fact, when a woman consciously chooses pleasure, genuine soul nourishing pleasure, when she prioritizes alignment, when she embraces her softness, when she leans into her beauty, and when she commits to soul nourishment over the relentless, often joyless grind of hustle. She doesn't slow down her power, quite the opposite. She amplifies it. She becomes a force, not of pushing and forcing, but of attracting and drawing in. It's a completely different energetic signature. It's not about fighting your way to the top. It's about becoming so naturally you, so deeply aligned that the top gravitates towards you. So, how did I begin to make this shift? Because it wasn't an overnight transformation, it was a conscious, deliberate recalibration. One day, in a candlelit moment of quiet, as most of my revelations happened for me, when I felt most aligned with my higher self, I met my performing self on the plane I was yet to rise to. Don't get me wrong, this version of me then, she was her, the it woman, brilliant, a titan in her field. But in that moment of quiet several years ago, she came to me burned out, bone deep tired. She had climbed the ladder, hit the targets, closed the deals, but she was depleted. She was doing everything right, but something felt wrong because she was playing a game that was built for someone else's energy and not hers. And that was when I knew, after deep soul searching and insightful conversations that I had through journaling. And through this, we began her return. A return not to softness, that was already a given. I was feminine, sensual, soft already. And every woman has this embedded waiting to be aligned and activated. So at that point, my biggest question, my most vulnerable journal prompt that started the return was, why am I leading like I have something to prove instead of something to offer? And with this lead, we began a return not to softness, but to sovereignty. I began to slow down and to reclaim my presence, infuse my interactions again with grace. My higher self and that version of me, we started small. We talked about my presence in the room. Was I always rushing, or could I slow down? Could I take a breath and truly occupy space? We talked about my communication. Was I always direct and assertive, or could I introduce a touch of grace, a dash of intrigue, a sprinkle of persuasive charm? And oh, that was the turning point. I started to notice that when I entered a meeting or training delivery room with my calm, assured aura, rather than a frantic, driven one, people listened differently. When I posed questions with genuine curiosity and a hint of a smile, rather than demanding answers, information flowed more freely. I started to lead with a quiet authority, an undeniable allure that drew people to me rather than forcing them to comply. It wasn't about being weak, it was about being magnetic. This isn't about being passive, mind you. Feminine magnetism is not passivity, it's about being strategically radiant. It's about understanding that influence isn't always about the loudest voice or the most aggressive stance. Sometimes it's about the most captivating presence, the most insightful question, the most elegant solution. It's about cultivating an inner abundance that naturally spills over, attracting collaboration, respect, and opportunities. Think of the most successful women that you admire, the ones who seem to effortlessly navigate the world, achieving their goals with a certain grace. Do they always seem to be frantically hustling, or do they possess a quiet confidence, a captivating charm, a way of being that simply draws success to them? They lead with elegance, not brute force. They inspire rather than command. They create a desire to follow rather than demand obedience. So, how do we cultivate this magnetic power, especially when the world is constantly telling us to out masculine the masculine? What I did firstly was to replace the rigid, suffocating scheduling with what I now call sacred ritual. So instead of waking up and immediately checking my phone, I started taking those slower mornings, intentional mornings, infused with meditation, burning essential oils or candles, perhaps adding some calming music, and then journaling. And then there were my rich coffee moments too. Just a moment to breathe and to be with myself before giving intentional moments to my daughters. And you know what? Those slow mornings, that sacred space became my powerhouse preparation. That's where the clarity came in, where the creative ideas sparked, where I connected with my intuition on a much deeper level. My day wasn't starting from a place of reaction and urgency any longer, but from a place of centeredness and intention. Secondly, this is a huge one for me. I learned to let myself receive. And this wasn't about receiving material things, it was about receiving help when it was offered, allowing myself to truly take in compliments without deflecting them, being open to miracles, showing up in unexpected ways, and just trusting in divine timing instead of trying to force every single outcome. I realized that my constant striving had created a shield, pushing away the very support and opportunities that were trying to find their way to me. By opening myself to receiving, I created space for flow. And thirdly, this is perhaps the most outwardly visible change. I stopped chasing. I literally stopped running after every potential client, every perceived opportunity, every shiny object. I stopped sending out endless cold emails, relentlessly networking with people who weren't aligned to me and my vision. Instead, I focused on becoming the person who attracts those things. I focused on cultivating my energy, my vision, my unique offering. And the most incredible thing happened. I started attracting clients who were perfectly aligned with my values and vision. They started showing up. Opportunities that felt effortless and expansive rather than draining began to present themselves to me. So here's my core established practices turned blueprint. Number one, presence. Be fully present in every interaction. Put down your phone, look people in the eye, and truly listen. When you are fully present, you become a beacon, a focal point. People are drawn to genuine attention. Number two, cultivate your inner world. True magnetism comes from a place of inner peace, self worth, and joy. Invest in your well being, your physical health, your mental clarity, your emotional resilience. When you're truly full, you radiate from the inside. Number three, embrace your sensuality. I don't mean just in a romantic sense. I mean your connection to your five senses, the beauty of perfectly brewing a cup of coffee, the feel of luxurious fabric against your skin, the scent of fresh flowers. When you are attuned to the richness of life, you become rich within yourself, and that richness is undeniably attractive. Number four, communicate with grace. This isn't about being a pushover. It's about choosing your words carefully, about infusing your communication with warmth, empathy, and clarity. A well paced compliment, a thoughtful question, a genuinely kind gesture can be far more powerful than a blunt directive. And finally, my muses, number six, remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be. Be the woman who is so undeniably herself, so deeply rooted in her own power that she doesn't need to shout to be heard. She simply is, and the world leans in and listens. And what was the result of all this change? I began to glow differently. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a palpable shift in my energy, my presence, even my physical appearance. There was a lightness, a radiance, a calm confidence. And here's a kicker: everything and everyone around me began to respond to my glow. My relationships deepened, my business flourished with less effort, and I found myself experiencing more joy, more peace, and more genuine fulfillment than I ever had in my most hustle driven days. It was like I had tapped into an invisible current, a magnetic field that drew in what I needed when I needed it with grace and with ease. So, if you are watching this today, if any part of this resonates with you, I want to ask you a crucial question, a question that might just be the key to unlocking your next level of success, but more importantly, your next level of joy and fulfillment. Are you hustling or are you radiating? Are you chasing or are you magnetizing? Because this is the fundamental distinction we're talking about. Feminine leadership, true feminine power, is not about control. It's not about micromanaging every detail or forcing outcomes through sheer willpower. It's about current. It's about energy. It's about essence. It's about the invisible pull of a woman who knows who she is, what she stands for, and what she wants to call into her life. It's about becoming so deeply rooted in your true nature and self that you naturally draw in what is meant for you. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to push harder. You don't need to compete more fiercely. In fact, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to soften, to slow down, to tune in. You need to be more aligned. And that, my muses, that is power. That is true, sustainable, expansive power that roots the shift for success. And it's a power that feels good, that feels joyful, that feels authentically you. So, as you go forth this week, I invite you to experiment. Observe the difference in your interactions when you lead with a calm, magnetic presence versus a hurried, hustling one. Notice how opportunities shift when you operate from a place of abundance and attraction. This isn't about abandoning your ambition. Far from it. It's about refining your approach. It's about leading with elegance, influence, and undeniable power of your own beautiful feminine magnetism. Thank you for being here today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What are you releasing from hustle culture? And tell me, are you ready to lead like a woman? Are you ready to shift from hustle to magnetism? Let me know. If you like this video episode, then let me know by liking it and subscribing for more content like this from me. Don't forget to share this with other women that you love and admire and want to uplift. Until next time.